War is peace, freedom is slavery, and ignorance is strength. That's the motto of the party in the book by George Orwell, 1984. And what a good introduction to today's topic, because we're today talking about the ISA. ISA stands for Intelligent Speed Assistance System. It is the new system that has gotten mandatory last month all across the European Union. It is a system that is supposed to check that you are really going the speed limit and don't get up to any kind of evil mischief. Sounds pretty scary and pretty control hungry, right? Let's see how scary it really gets. And with that, welcome back to the Free Mouse MC. With speaking of George Orwell and his book and what happens when you let your government exercise total control over you earlier, his book also has a strong focus on language and what actually defines truth. And that brings me to the overarching arc of this video as well, how the discussion culture around topics surrounding new laws, potential motorcycle bans, and the big evil statesmen usually go in the motorcycle news spectrum here on YouTube and in the internet in general, as I've been having a bone to pick with that already for quite some time and was just waiting for a chance to make a video about it. This is basically the perfect chance for that, as the ISA system is kind of the new boogeyman for this type of video. The government is going to take your motorcycle type video, and it is the perfect opportunity. I did last Sunday what every 23-year-old truly desires: sex, drugs, and researching 160 pages of EU law text. To make it short, motorcycles are kind of already out of the question, as this law is just for N and M type vehicles. So cars, trucks, semi-trucks, transporters, buses, this kind of stuff. So see you guys next time. Wait, it is not that simple. Really often, lawmakers actually forget motorcycles and they're later added on in and then still have to obey the same rules. So it's still absolutely worth for us to have a look at the ISA systems. The general goal is to reduce traffic accidents as much as possible in the European Union, which I first of all think is a great goal and an admirable goal. And these systems are mandatory since last month, July 2024. The system already kicks in 3 kilometers above the speed limit shown in the speedometer, which is quite early, but it can be turned off. When turning it off, it shows a 10-second warning. And when turning it off, it needs to be active the next time the vehicle is started. The system actually is a traffic sign recognition system that is combined with a system that is then supposed to stop you from proceeding. And there are 2 different ways in which that system can do that. First of all, you have the big scary thing that we're all scared of, the system regulating your car or maybe your motorcycle to go slower. The alternative is that the system gives you a warning to continue speeding. Manufacturers kind of have the choice between these 2 options, and you can kind of guess what option manufacturers are going with if they don't want to massively cut into their revenue lines. The law continues with a bunch of stuff on how good these systems actually need to be at recognizing street signs. And I think this is very good, as it also protects consumers from companies messing this up. And this also includes a 14-year warranty on all sensors and cameras and free upgrades for 7 years. Of course, after these 7 years, we can kind of expect the Mercedes-Benz Battle Pass with loot boxes. So yeah. Let's talk about the ways that the vehicle can show you that you're going too fast. First of all, we have a visual representation and an audio sound. Then we have a visual again combined with haptic feedback, something like a vibrating gas pedal. And then we have just vibrating, that is basically no visuals whatsoever, that's the softest method. There is one important thing to comprehend here when it comes to actually comprehending what we are dealing with here. Those different warnings have different times that they need to be activated for. For example, the visual warning combined with the audio has a minimum of 3 seconds and a maximum of 5 seconds. The visual warning combined with haptic feedback, 10 to 12 seconds, and just the haptic feedback, 15 to 20 seconds. So the less intervention you have, the more warning you basically get. The warnings are also supposed to be designed in a way that you notice them, but they don't irritate you. Basically, as an example, more like of a Samsung alarm clock than compared to the terrible Apple alarm clock that makes you feel like you're getting reanimated in a trench. The warning stops early if you reach the legal speed limit again, completely take your foot off the gas, or pull the handbrake. That sounds fun. Or press the normal brake. Let's also shortly talk about the speed control function. That is your vehicle actually slowing down. That's the scary stuff. So how does that work? Your vehicle would slow down back to the normal speed limit, but this system can be overridden with a kickdown, so completely pressing the gas down. This system right now is not being implemented by any manufacturer, as manufacturers have the choice. The only place where this is really relevant is especially when it comes to trucks, buses, and these kinds of vehicles. There the law is a bit different, that for some of them it is actually mandatory. But nevertheless, theoretically, manufacturers have the possibility to put this kind of stuff into your car. So that is the actual situation, which is really important to point out, as when dealing with topics like this, you very quickly get into the room of either really one-sided framing or straight up misinformation, which is also incredibly hard to check. And sadly, that is, I don't think because of, in the case of misinformation, because of poor research, but because of how you actually generate impressions, views, and reach on this platform. Because in comparison to a print medium that only needs like a really intense title, in a YouTube video, actually to get reach, you need engagement in the term of watch time and also comments. And you're just going to get them a lot more with shock value, a completely coherent one-sided narrative, and also with misinformation that really outrages people. And if you're lucky, people kind of want to then confirm their already bad feelings about something, and you maybe can even get them to watch multiple videos of this kind in a row. That's why some motorcycle channels actually really lean into this, to basically have you watch a bunch of videos in the same narrative in a row. Sadly, this type of misinformation is extremely hard to check, as you need to read through some of the most boring texts you will have ever written and do quite an amount of research till you get somewhere, as already leaving out details can really reshape how a story goes. In the motorcycle news space, you really often deal then with videos having either complete misinformation that is really hard to check, or the less severe case of just really one-sided framing. To use another topic with videos, for example, being titled stuff like climate change, communism, Welsh government signs warrant of execution for personal transport. Yeah, of course, I don't have anything against clickbaity titles because I use them myself. We all need to survive on this platform. But when using something like that, you need to kind of put it into some kind of context. Otherwise, it's just fear-mongering, mumbo-jumbo kind of talk, This is the softer version. Let's get to an example of actual misinformation. Sadly, I for that have to use the Austrian YouTube channel and motorcycle magazine MotoChecker. They released a video on this exact issue. And the presenter in the video says that it is important for them to not have any kind of violence from either side of the political spectrum in their comment section, and that they want to represent the middle, and that is very important to them. But then proceed to just cherry pick facts that have the biggest polarization factor, completely focus on the engine speed deregulation technique that could be possible, but if when reading the law actually has a smaller part in the whole thing, and basically completely ignores that there is a choice that manufacturers can make for what system they're going to use. To make matters worse, they then even go as far as completely fear-mongering into the direction of that a system like that could be used for total surveillance to mail you a ticket home, potentially, which is a whole separate topic that we're also going to get to in this video. Of course, this stuff is still bad, but you're going to lose the credibility when talking about an issue like that when doing stuff like this. especially after saying that you're going to do it completely in the middle. Sadly, this is a whole trend in the motorcycle news niche and kind of made way for basically a new form of video that's just straight up rage bait at this point. And of course this works really well because most often the mistakes and how you then shift the narrative is really in the details, and to debunk that you need to read hours into law texts and really get into the material, and you cannot do that as quick as this kind of stuff is produced. And as we already discussed, just leaving out context really severely changes the narrative, and if you combine that with a whole us against them framing, you have a really good chance of going viral. And I have to say that stuff really works. I sometimes actually use these kinds of framing techniques myself, but I have the rule for myself, I'm only doing that on videos that are meant in a fun, lighthearted way that don't deal with topics that have the potential to actually split society across certain lines. And also with using this kind of framing, with the way that social media engagement works, you really quickly also see the results. Every time I did that, the video did extraordinarily well. So after all I've said, it maybe has seemed that I could be in favor of a system like the ISA system. What is now my actual personal belief about this? And I have to agree, this system absolutely sucks donkey dick, and I don't want it anywhere near my car or motorcycle at all. In fact, I don't like any kinds of electronics in my personal opinion. I kind of understand that you need to have an ABS on a motorcycle. At some point it needs to be mandatory, yeah, but it doesn't stop me from being annoyed by it, even though it would be the better thing. My complete understanding is kind of lost when it comes to lane assist. That's the point that just gets me mad. When I sit in a car that has lane assist, I'm the person that's constantly cursing. I don't like that the whole feedback that I actually have with the car feels different when I do the same kind of input. That is very concerning for me, and I especially get mad if the thing reads the lines wrong and kicks into my steering. And of course with that, I'm not a fan of the ISA system, as well as the potential for it reading signs wrong and all this kind of stuff. I can already see that it will get on my nerves pretty hard. But at the same time, I have to say it is something that is slightly similar to something like a lane assist. Pretty much does the same thing with the speed limit. Also, for me and most likely all of you guys and many people, the ISA system hits a very sensitive spot. Because let's be honest, we like speeding. Hell, we love speeding. Of course, speed limits are legally binding, but let's be honest, it's kind of one of the few points where our modern road is still kind of the Wild West, as it is basically impossible to enforce a speed limit even with police and radar cameras, and everyone breaks the speed limit every day, multiple times, constantly. If you say, oh no, I don't do that, I always behave, that's utter bullshit. When I'm driving 20 kilometers above the speed limit on a normal road on the highway, I'm in perfect flow of traffic, everyone around me is also going 20 kilometers over, and when I go only 10 over, I already have a guy breathing down my neck in the car behind me. So let's face it, we are completely fine with speed limits as long as we don't have to actually obey them. This is especially the case with motorcycle riders, because why else would anyone buy a machine that can double the speed limit in the blink of an eye in first gear? But one thing is important to point out, for me as someone who does not support these systems and don't want them anywhere near my vehicle, it is very common that the individual interest really clashes with the general societal interest, and in this case even goes completely opposite ways. Because I think a majority of people that just use their car to go from A to B and don't really care about the enjoyment of riding a car, which is a big group who just use it as transport, don't actually mind all that much. Of course, speeding leads to a higher danger, and especially excessive speeding can put actually other people's life at risk. So let's look at the situation of the just going from A to B at the speed limit type person. As the MotoChecker video earlier pointed out, does this system has the potential to become the Big Brother super watch system that will instantly fine you as soon as you even think of speeding.
Thanks a lot, you shit brain,
for repeated violations of the verbal morality.
So no and half yes, in my opinion, because first of all, you have a European privacy law being very in the way of this. This doesn't really count as an argument, as this whole idea is based on the fact that those laws would get taken away. If that would be the case, the government would 100% use this to send you a ticket home, as every power that a government has, it will use. I don't believe that there's some kind of thing that a government has the possibility to do something and then they're just like, nah, that's not moral. No, if there's the possibility, that's definitely happening. The technology allows for this. So why am I convinced that this is not happening? When saying that these systems will automatically mail you a ticket home, it is not at all about them actually mailing home you a ticket. It is about you being in general against this type of system and going with this narrative, as the technology to just mail you home a ticket already exists, and that in a way better form, and that almost for a decade. Because what do you think gives you the information in your Google Maps that there's a traffic jam? This little oversized Tamagotchi here. And if a system like this would be implemented, then I 100% believe it would go through phones, because everyone carries one, and it would hit everyone in every vehicle, no matter how much electronics is actually in the car itself. That's why I believe this point is not actually about the ISA system, but basically about fear-mongering around it. Because you kind of cannot really be like, oh yeah, they're going to send you home a ticket, while still having all cookies activated on every website and being completely a-okay with you being completely out of glass when it comes to your digital persona. Would be a perfect place for a sponsorship for some cybersecurity type stuff. Sadly, I don't have one. So basically, the only thing protecting you from just instantly getting a ticket mailed home when you speed is European privacy law, ISA existing or not. And that is the case since 2014, basically. And on top of that, I believe that would be legally possible privacy law-wise. A speeding ticket is the least of our worries. Under a lot of these types of videos, the comment section just completely goes off the deep end, calling this kind of stuff complete totalitarianism. And hold your horses for a second there. You're writing this stuff publicly on the internet. And do you even know what totalitarianism looks like? We're talking here about your car beeping when you're speeding. That sucks, yes, and I don't think that's good. But calling it complete totalitarianism is an absolute over-exaggeration. And a lot of the times, those comments also quickly go into the direction of every country should just leave the European Union because it's a law made by the European Union. I mean, come on. Getting super mad about your car beeping and shitty straws is to a degree understandable, but not to this degree. I mean, we're talking about a union that managed to keep safe peace on this continent for 70 years and also made our daily life in a lot of ways a lot easier when it comes to international travel, when it comes to currency, when it comes to trade, when it comes to our general quality of life with internet and energy and all that type of stuff. Me having this YouTube channel would most likely not be possible with that, just having a look at the travel videos with my motorbike itself. And the sad thing is, of course, with a system like that, there is very valid criticism that needs to be voiced. Sad if it just gets completely numbed out by all the other my car is beeping and the paper straws suck bullshit, because they're actual issues, for example, democratic deficit and what how people are actually engaged in the voting process inside the EU, that then get completely overshadowed by stuff like this. And of course, this type of stuff is then also damaging the foundation of people who actually are trying to fight laws like that. Let's get into a bunch of hypothetical stuff. How would it actually be if this system gets implemented on your motorcycle? Hopefully that never happens, but let's just discuss it for a moment. So I think that like most people, when they're just like riding around, they would most likely just say, oh yeah, I'm kind of behaving. They would not switch the system off. Also, as it's a hassle to switch off the system, and then would, especially in like slow speed stuff like city riding, constantly run into the barrier and have the thing beeping on them. It would just make traffic a lot more annoying, basically, because as soon as you're out of the city on a cross-country road and on the highway, no one would most likely like instantly excessively speed, but as soon as the speed limit is once like breached, people are going to stay over it, because that's what they already do right now. So you once have the beeping, and then for the rest of your drive until you enter another city area or where you have to slow down, it's basically quiet from there on. But it would still make riding in a metropolitan area incredibly annoying, as the flow of traffic forces you above the speed limit most of the time, and people are not going to be fond on buying stuff like this. People cannot afford new motorcycles and new cars anyway, so the majority of this kind of stuff will be left in showroom floors anyway. So if you have something like that, you'll be forced to go over the speed limit by the rest of traffic. But like, how does it feel when you then want to actually exceed the speed limit consciously? You know, feeling the true freedom of your motorcycle, the thing that no one of us actually does. Or warm summer evening, you're riding your local road, no one is there, you've ridden the road 3-4 times, and you know no one is there, no police car in sight. You pull over, brace yourself, and then see what your motorcycle really has. Yeah, then people would, of course, then switch off this kind of device. I also believe if it would get implemented for motorcycles, it would take quite some time until something like a not off switchable version would be installed, as you still have basically for all other assist systems on most motorcycles, they can be switched off. And if not, there are fuses that you can pull. There are ways that you can basically stop these systems from messing up your ride, basically. And people will use these methods. So for this last part, I would actually sum up that the way that you enjoy your motorcycle and the way that the law is currently written would not really change the way you enjoy your motorcycle when it comes to the actual like pure enjoyment part of your motorbike in the moments that it truly matters. I'm still not a big fan of it. I think there's another big discussion to be had: at what point are people safe enough when it comes to assistance systems for cars, for motorcycles. It's very easy to make the point that stuff is safe enough because, of course, I like the status quo, you like the status quo, but it's also important to point out stuff has been different through times, and probably people have thought pretty much the same at that point. I think it's another philosophical question for another video. So this is it for this video so far. I hope you liked my breakdown on the ISA systems. Definitely feel free to like and subscribe, and to my viewers from Belgium, France and Spain, I'm soon going to be on the way there. If you have a motorcycle you would like me to review, feel free to send me an email.